This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Shalom. Hello, everybody around the world, my friends. Wow, who saw this one coming 2 months ago, 3 months ago, besides Bill Gates? It's really very, very special to be with you all here today with literally thousands of people from around the world. I would like to thank so many of our friends and partners for making it happen, to Torah Anytime, Rabbi Yosef Davies and the rest of the wonderful team. I'd like to thank Devorah Yafa from God Direct. I'd like to thank so much with all my heart, Rachel Wyman, for working incredibly hard, for our favorite MC, Mr. Mo Mernick, and so many of the Mishpiyim, Rabbi Jacobson, so many of the Mishpiyim who have given their time and energy, the holy rabbis, the holy Rebbitzins, to be here for you today, to be all together today. It's mamish. I don't need to tell you, as I am sitting here and I'm watching the team talk behind the scenes and dealing with little logistical things. There's literally coming in my messages on my phone. I've seen a few of them already today saying, please daven for my father, he's sick in bed, for my grandfather, sick in bed. Please daven for my husband, he's only 36 and he's in hospital right now. It's something that, it's something from history. We have a funny perception of history. History is something that only happens in the past. But I really feel that we're living in a moment which is truly momentous right now and truly terrifying right now. And I think all the time about, Holocaust stories, lahavdil, we're not comparing this to that, but in our own sense, in our own generation, there's something painfully similar that we're going through, an unprecedented challenge where our assumptions of reality are collapsing around us. Our sensitivities, what we expect reality to look like, what we expect our daily lives to look like, are falling down around us, and we're confronting on a daily level, I don't need to tell you, tremendous pain, tremendous fear, tremendous overwhelm, tremendous anxiety. I think back to all these stories in my own way that I've told my kids at the Shabbos table about the moments of darkness, like in times of the Holocaust and in times of all kind of challenges, how individuals stood up and did things exceptional caring and exceptional chesed, took responsibility for others rather than thinking about themselves. And of course, that awakens this moment where we're in the midst of the story now. We're in the midst, real time, of the stories that will be told in the future. And, one of the definitions I often use about Emunah is the capacity to remember the future, not the past, but the future. And Emunah is our ability, faith is our ability to remember the future and think, wow, if I can fall and collapse in the darkness right now, but what if I could stand up, and what if I could own the narrative and own the challenge and step into something much more extraordinary right here, right now? So part of what we need to do that is deep understandings from these wonderful teachings and deep tools to own our consciousness and to own our das, to become what's called balei das, what the Tzaddikim calls masters of our own consciousness, that we can enter this stage and mindfully and willfully and consciously and not become victims of panic and victims of overwhelm. When the world is breaking around us, we have a choice. That's, do we want to break down or do we want to break through? And then these are the choices that are before us right now. And I was asked today by some of the chevra, some of the students, that we should really be sharing something more than Torah. There's a part of it, something I'm a part of, called the Elevation Project, and we teach Avodas Hashem, His Buddhas, Devekas. We teach meditation to people all around the world at retreats, at seminars. And, that's a nice thing to do. It's a healing thing to do. It's a profound thing to do. But now it's something that is not something that's optional. It's something that's now suddenly essential. And I want to share a few words. I want to share very personally from my heart a little of how I'm thinking about what's going on today. And I hope and I don't like when rabbis try and prophesize, whether they say Mashiach must be around the corner. We don't know. When they say everyone's going to be fine, and we don't know. When they say if everyone just does this mitzvah, we'll be safe. And I honestly feel it should be true, but we don't know. And we have to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. That's the faith, and that's the action. We have to be responsible, and we have to be real with the challenge. And the reality of the challenge is this is not going to go away anytime soon. There's a good chance we will be in our homes for weeks and potentially months. There's a good chance that even the best possible outcomes, al derech hateva, are disastrous and game-changing in how we view our communities and our families and our lives. And we have to brace for impact. Of course, Hashem is the source of all miracles. And when we plug our consciousness into Hashem, we open up the world to miracles. And that's what we want to explore a little today. But I want to begin by sharing something a little with you. And this is a little deep. And I'm somewhat cautious to talk in this language. Some of my friends said maybe I should teach the teaching, but not the language. But the language for me of Lashon HaKodesh, of Aramaic, from the Zohar, from the Kitfei, the great mystics of our tradition, there's a certain language that we use. And I believe with all my heart that the language opens up deep paradigms. The language that we use unlocks deep paradigms of how we're supposed to understand the world and reality. And the deeper the challenge that we face, the deeper the light we must draw on to meet the challenge head on, to have the resources and the resourcefulness, to have the will and the understanding to meet it. Now, even though for many of us, I am coughing. I don't have coronavirus. Not that I know of, God forbid. So don't panic about my cough. And I tell my wife the same thing. There's the deeper the challenge we face, the deeper the light we need to draw on. And that's exactly the teaching I want to say. But it's also true of why I want to ask permission from you all to quote a little actual Kabbalah and give you this terminology to understand the paradigms at play. When we began, for many of us, this situation got real, got really challenging, got personal in the week of Purim. And it's heading us towards a Pesach, which is something we never imagined. And, a kind of Pesach, a kind of Seder we never imagined. And we have to be very real with ourselves. We know as the Jews and the mystics teach that, the time of the festivals awakens a certain energy. And therefore, there's always secrets in the festivals to untap, to unlock the consciousness, which is a tool to unlock the challenges we face. And we know that the essence, the primal mitzvah of all of Purim is chayev inish libasumei bepuria. That every individual is obligated on the time of the energy of the consciousness of Purim to be drunk. Ad delo yada, bein ara Haman or Baruch Mordechai. To get drunk to the point that we don't know the difference between, the curses of Haman, the most negative individual in the world, and the blessings of the greatest spiritual master of Mordechai. And this mitzvah of ad delo yada, this mitzvah of to get to the point that you aren't able to make a distinction between darkness and light is such a remarkable mitzvah. Because, my friends, all of Torah teaches us to use our mind, to use our seichel, to use our intellect, to use our mindfulness, to approach reality. And we practice learning the Talmud, and we practice being conscious when we make a blessing rather than diving into the eating of the food to become master of our mind. And how profound then the highest energetic day of the year of Purim, then we actually have to transcend intellect, transcend rationale, transcend reason, transcend even mindful consciousness, which is aware of myself, and actually raised to a point higher than normal consciousness. And that thing of ad delo yada, to get to the point where you don't know. It's interesting because the mystics teach, because ad, the word until the point, is actually the letters of das, of consciousness. So it's literally called a consciousness, ad delo yada, a knowing which is higher than knowing. And at a time in our lives where we've never been in a state, I've asked people many times, people call me in the last 2 weeks, very panicked. And I often ask them this question and encourage to ask yourself this question. What are you most afraid of? Are you aware of it? Are you conscious of it? And can you tune in? What are you most afraid of? And I don't know. I know you don't know, because you can't be shoilet on the midas. You can't control or guide or release that which is overwhelming you until you can be makir, you be conscious of what it is. And if you break down the primal fears, yes, there's a fear of death. But practically speaking, scientifically speaking, most of us will not actually face death. And even the isolation is not actually necessarily to stop the individual's death as much as it's to protect people at risk, as I'm sure you've all been reading well. And that's the obligation, that we must be isolated, even if we miss minyanim, even if we miss the mikveh, et cetera, et cetera. These are the obligations we have to protect others. But personal death is not necessarily what we face. But it doesn't surprise that so many people said that the primary fear is just the tohu vohu, is just the complete overwhelm, the not knowing. the not knowing what is going on and what will be, and I'm out of control, and everything is out of control. It's chaos. There's no greater trigger for panic than chaos, because it's the release of all control, the release of understanding. And Purim begins with the primary consciousness, the highest consciousness of the world. If the world begins from Pesach, then Purim is the Keter, even the highest place above that. It's the revelation of the light of Keter, the highest sphere, if you know what that means. And this is the idea of Keter, of Corona, where we'll talk about. This is the idea that when you can't know what's going on, you have to release to a higher state of consciousness that is okay with not knowing, that knows beyond the not knowing. And that's such an abstract thing to say, my friends, but there's a truth about this. There's the deepest truth about this. That there's a part of you, the deepest part of you, that is so connected to yourself, so connected to your source, so connected to the light, that it can confront unbelievable darkness. It can confront unbelievable chaos. It can confront unbelievable not knowing by holding its ground, by holding its space. And in that not knowing, there's a deeper knowing, a deeper connection, a deeper resonance. You know, everybody has this kind of weird assumption like, oh my gosh, I'm panicking because I'm out of control. But the truth is, my friends, you can go, oh great, it's out of control. It's out of my hands. There's an ability to find source within you, something greater to draw from. And that's the ad de lo yada, the knowing that's higher than knowing, the trust that is higher than understanding, the let go and the let God, proverbially speaking. And this is the hachana, this is the keter, this is the crown, this is the corona, this is the source that we have to enter into to deal with this unprecedented time of darkness. Will it go for 6 weeks? When can I get back to my normal everyday life? When will it be 2 months, 3 months? And we were all reading those articles, and the scientists really don't know either. And the government really is clueless if you watch them. No political statements, just they're clueless. And all around the world, they're clueless. And this unbelievable not knowing. And the professionals publish, oh, it's only going to be 6 weeks in quarantine. It's only going to be 6 months in quarantine. We are being called to draw deeper. We are being called not as an individual, not as the Mamlekas Kohanim, not as individuals, not as communities, not as a nation of Am Yisrael. As a whole world is being called to source deeper. If you want to not break down and you're willing to break through, then you have to break through the noise in your head and the panic and the desire to understand, to begin to feel present with something much more expansive, much more open, much more ourself, our true self, which is the divine connection, the keter, the higher consciousness, which knows even in the unknowing, which senses the path. That's what Amunah is. It guides me home when my eyes can't see, when my head doesn't understand. You know, when my GPS goes down and I still know where I need to go and how to get there. That is Amunah. And that's the ad de lo yada. Now, I'm going to use something Kabbalistic. I hope you'll forgive me. And I want to give you a very important paradigm. I'm going to spend 10 minutes giving you a paradigm that we're going to enter experience together. If you're brave and courageous and not cynical enough, I don't know if you can handle that. I guess we'll find out soon enough, my friends. I want to say something very, very important, which is a paradigm to understand what's happening in this world from the Kabbalistic sources. And if a person would ever be blessed to open up the Kitvei Ari and the mystical writings from our tradition that explain what happens on Purim, I'm not going to use the Kabbalistic language, but I want to teach you one key word. And here's the paradigm, because this is the only way you can understand what's happening in the world around us. And I'm asking for blessing right now in the schus of the Tzadikei Emes, that we should be guided to connect to these ideas in the deeper way, to open our hearts and souls in the deepest way. They should not just be words or Devar Torahs or Divrei Chizuk. It should be something that connects to our core, to my core, to your core, to connect together in this moment, to create a kind of force field of Amunah, a level of his kashrus, of interconnectivity, to draw down these teachings. Because we have the power collectively to bind our mind to Amunah, to bind our mind to Ein Ad Milvado, to begin to see the patterns and the algorithms playing out. And the more we see the divinity within it, the more we flip over the darkness to light, which is exactly the secret of what I want to teach you. What I want to teach you is the soy, the secret of something called Dormita. And you forgive me for going a bit technical. Dormita is a process. And there's all these technical words about Dormita, Histalchus HaMoichin, Histalchus HaZah, it's the binyan of Nuk, it's the binyan of Malchus. It's the goal, the tachlis is something called panim, but I'm going to break this down as simply as I can. When Hashem wants to give us an upgrade, Hashem is an infinite light, an infinite blessing, and he floods the world with that consciousness, that moichin, that revelation, that understanding, that sensitivity. And sometimes when we go into exile, when we go into times in our lives when we become spiritually disconnected and are overwhelmed by our fear, by our ego, by our lust, by anything that overwhelms us. There's times as a nation we do that. There's times as an individual. That's called exile. But there's times when Hashem wants to take us out of exile. He wants to lift us up to a higher place, a greater expansion, a greater awareness, a higher truth on a personal level, on a national level, on a global level. And the path up, the path to open to something deeper, more profound, ironically, is not to go from the first floor to the second floor. It's to go from the first floor down to the basement and then come higher. It's called aliyah. So Yerida Litzarech Aliyah, the descent for the sake of the ascent. When you are stuck in your life where we all are, and there's infinite truth and infinite light and infinite connection and infinite consciousness. There's a capacity called Einon Movado to have the awareness to see divinity in all things and all times, to have infinite blessing, infinite abundance, infinite influx, infinite connection. That's what Torah and mitzvahs and Shabbos and all these ways of tefillah prayer are supposed to open us up to. But we can't actually access it, not because there's a lack of abundance and flooding of light from above, but because we are stuck in our small-minded paradigms from below. We're stuck in our fears and our doubts and our ego and our expectations of life and our bitterness and frustrations and our victim consciousness. So when Hashem wants to take us to the highest level, what he does is abandon us. What he does is he puts himself to sleep, if you will. So I don't want to get caught in the technicality, but I'm going to try and say to you in a basic way, my friend. If you understand this, if you're with me, I wish there was a way to interact on the screen when we teach classes each week in the Elevation Project, when we have online, we have hundreds of people, everyone can interact here, and I can get a sense of who you're, where you're off to. I hope if you're with me, send me in your consciousness a yes, we're here together. And let me try and explain this out. Oh, help by connecting to me, by opening up that allows me to connect to you and us to connect to our source. What it says is when Adam Harishon, when Adam, the primordial man in the Garden of Eden, whatever world and spiritual place and state that was, wanted to create woman, wanted to create the great feminine energy, wanted to create the great capacity for manifestation, for revelation in the world. Not that should be a Shemayim, there should also be an Aretz. Hashem put Adam to sleep. And when Adam was asleep, then Hashem could create the woman. And what that means is mystically, what that means is that when Hashem wants to make us all become a receiver, when Hashem wants to build us, to profoundly transform our emunah, to profoundly overcome our blocks, he, so to speak, separates from the world. He creates an unbelievable experience of darkness. This is exactly what happens according to the Ariya Kadosh at the time of Purim. At the time of Purim, when Achashverosh announced their terrible decree against to kill all of the Jews in 127 states, 127 countries, and they sat down to eat and drink and celebrate that. The Megillah says, V'ha'ir Shushan Nevucha. And the ear of Shushan was Nevucha. Everybody got these letters, all the Jews are going to be destroyed, they're going to be wiped out. And the word Nevucha just means astonished. They were overwhelmed. They didn't understand what was going on. And there's a midrash from our sages from the time of the Talmud that says a teaching, it wasn't just that anomaly came out that the Jews are going to be wiped out. It was one terrible thing was happening after another. It says that one lady went up to a rooftop to dry out some fruit and she fell off the rooftop. Another young man went to a well to draw out water and he happened to trip and stumble into the well. Sometimes we enter a period of unbelievable dinam, unbelievable negative energy. Isn't this what you see every day? It's not just the disease. It's just not just the loneliness of people trapped in their houses. It's not just the abandonment some people are feeling. It's not just the stock market crumbling. It's not just people are losing their jobs. It's one thing after another. Do you sense that you see? It's insane. It's overwhelming. So many people are telling me other issues that's bringing up in their life, the shalom bias issues. The kids are off school and we're preparing for Pesach. It's one thing after another, one thing after another. This is called a domita. When Hashem wants to evolve the consciousness of the whole of the world, what he first does is remove the higher revelation so that we collapse. And I know that sounds cruel, but let's be honest. We never grow in the light as much as we do in the darkness. we never grow in the light as much as we do in the darkness. We never catalyze our willpower. We never reach out to the deepest parts of ourselves and reach out to the deepest and connect to help others. The acts of kindness that are be done, the acts of global responsibility, the acts of deep inner work that people around the globe are catalyzing, doing, having to confront ourselves in the deepest way. What Hashem does is he removes his light. So the world free falls and we face our biggest fears and our challenges and our darkness and our anxieties. And we say, this is not what life is. This is not what I was expecting. I don't want to confront this. I don't want to confront it all at once. I don't have the power. I don't have the resources. I don't have the state. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm hungry. I'm frustrated. And I now have to do that with 20 kids in the house. I now have to do that cleaning for Pesach. And Hashem is saying, you can handle it. And we're going to bring it all up. And rather than me saving you, you're going to save you. I never give you a test you do not have the capacity to overcome. And if you feel you don't, that's exactly why he's going to take one step back. So you take the deepest step forward of personal responsibility, of community responsibility, of global responsibility. And the goal of Histalchus HaMochen, the goal of Hashem separating is to build the woman, is to build the you, is to build the receiver, so that we become so empowered, so strong, so conscious, so clear. We work through our blocks on the issues so much that now we return panim b'panim. Now we become so aware, so awakened that Hashem can return with an or chadash, an incredible new light, which is something we never imagined possible before. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is the process we're going through. Hashem is jump starting an unprecedented evolutionary process of consciousness in our generation. I want to tell you how this Domita thing works. If I can talk for a couple more minutes, if you give me permission. Domita means sleep. He puts the spiritual influx to sleep. He sedates it. He reduces it, so that we collapse, so we take a new level of ownership, transform ourselves, so we can turn face to face in the deepest way that we never imagined. So a new level of consciousness and reality can be transformed by. If you want to understand what's happening in the world, and I wanted to give you the secret, I want to give you this insight, it's so profound. If you want to know the secret of what's going on, what's called Binyan Malchus, the transformation of human consciousness, of Am Yisrael's consciousness, of our family's consciousness, individuals' consciousness. It's something called the Biro Hadas, the purification of desire, the purification of Dinyan. If you want to look what's happening in the world, equal from a governmental perspective to the breakdown of the medical system, to the deaths of the virus, is the financial issue of the stock market. What do we see by the stock market crashing at an unprecedented level for decades? What is the definition of the stock market? And people investing may be offended or not like this, but I checked this out. It's obvious and it's true. The essence of the stock market is people invest everything, and they invest day and night. What are they investing in? They're investing in imagination. The definition of the stock market is a place where there's something which can have an asset that could be a stock that could soar to millions of dollars, trillions of dollars. And then in a moment we see overnight it can lose millions, billions of dollars of value. Then it can go up and down like a roller coaster. The essence of any stock in the market, if you look what happened with WeWork last year, if you look when you see, the market is a bubble that pops. If you see even MySpace, what happens with MySpace? They say, wow, once they launch it, it's going to flood. There's going to be millions of people there. What happens? Nobody comes in, right? And then suddenly the stocks drop. Now, what's really happening there? The essence of the stock market is that we're not really sure what the objective value of something is. But what we do is we inflate that based on our greed, based on our expectation. The essence of the stock market is I have visions of a future that could be that I put my investment in. But that vision is imagination. If you want to know why the stock market crashed, it didn't truly crash because of the coronavirus, because of the objectivity that happened. Yes, we understand that hospitals are closed down. There's an oil issue. We understand that flights stop and that affects the oil industry. Yes, there's objective changes, but it's the panic and the anxiety that suddenly sucks the value out of the market. And it's the expectation of the greed which causes things to inflate. One of the profound things you see about the stock market is it is a primary global investment in imagination. And when we see what's happened in Hollywood closing down their films and production, the music industry is closing down. We see across the fashion industry, God forbid, the Met Gala, whatever that even is someone told me got canceled as well. What we see across the board is people are losing their jobs, and so many people in the world are investing their ego identity in the work. What we see across the board, listen to this, I'm going to say something very deep, and I want to see if you can get this. Across the board, more and more, that which we've invested in, which we tell ourselves is of absolute importance. It's very important, honey. I can't come to the table right now because I'm checking my Facebook, and it's very important whether I get likes or whether I don't get likes. This is all dim in its imagination. The stock market is dim in its imagination. The way we overinvest in work, in media, in societies is dim in imagination, but we invest in it like it's reality until the bubble pops and we say, that wasn't reality. That wasn't my essence. That wasn't my soul. I want to tell you something very, very deep. The whole world is being put into isolation. What does it mean, isolation? You want to know something really profound? In Israel, the word for isolation is bidud. Bidud, it means boyd from the Lashon boyded. It means to come back into quarantine, into isolation. Let me tell you a really profound secret, my friends. The Hebrew word for meditation is mitboyded. The word of isolation is exactly the same Hebrew word for the word for meditation. Hitboidedus, right? Boyded, base daled daled. What is the definition of the deepest prayer, the deepest devekas, the deepest connection to Hashem, the deepest meditational techniques? Avram ben Harambam, the son of Maimonides, right, has a very beautiful book about Avodas Hashem. And he says the definition of bidud, of his buddhidus, of meditation, of the deepest prayers, of the deepest devekas, is hitbudidus literally means to cause oneself to isolate from the world. And he says that, we usually think that isolation from the world means, I'm leaving the world externally, because if I want to meditate, that the Kabbalist taught, I go into my room, I go into a room within a room, I go to the forest, I cut off from the external things, I, God forbid, even turn my phone off, and I cut off to a deeper place within me, right? But he says, no, the essence of true meditation from the Torah perspective, it's not to leave the physical world to come to a quiet space. It's to disconnect from the noise of your mind, the emotions of the mind, the all-consuming dimion, imagination of the mind, to come back to a deeper, higher place within you, that which transcends all your external investments, all the external noise, all your external beliefs, all your external definitions of what is good or bad or right or wrong, what your ego is invested in, whether it's work, whether it's social media, whatever that stuff is. When the external crashes, then we move to the internal. We move to that internal place. Hashem is asking the world literally to step into the proverbial forest, to the proverbial inner place of his Hisbodedus, literally. It's a global meditation retreat. And he's asking us, Shev el taseh. What is Shev? Sometimes the Gemara in Eruvin says it's better not to act, right? To sit and be still and not enter into the world. Shev is also Yishuv Das, to return to higher consciousness, to return to a deeper knowing, and not to al taseh, not to get caught in the world of a seer, in action and buying and selling and jobs and schools, of the making, of the coming, of the going, but return to that inner place. We have to collectively, Hashem is asking to do his bodedus, do bidud. Hashem is asking us to pull our resources out externally, to reconnect to our source. You understand the external world of physicality is falling down around us, but none of Torah and mitzvahs, none of the inner world of spiritual connection is taken away. If anything, Hashem is opening up a chance for us to say, who are we really? The quality family time, the quality inner time, and to reconnect to our source, to reconnect to ourselves in the deepest way. I had a conversation with my mother the other day. It was not an easy conversation. My mother is an Australian. I love her much and I miss her deeply. And obviously it's so far it's hard to be so far away from her. And I called up my mom, and my mom is, my mom is every, God forbid, possible risk category of this machla, this virus, this megefa. And I said to my mother, I had to have the conversation with her of death. And I was afraid to bring it up, and I didn't know how she'd respond. I didn't know what her feelings would be. And I said to my mother, who I love very much, and thank God we have a beautiful connection, I said, have you got enough food in the house? Of course. Have you got enough toilet paper? Sakanas nefesh is mostly about toilet paper. And all these ideas. And finally I said, how are you feeling about it all? And she said, fine. I said, no, how are you feeling about the risk? Are you afraid? And my mother, in her own very, very sweet way, She smiled and she said, listen, sweetheart. She said, I'm 79. She said, I probably don't have so many illnesses, so many issues. I probably don't have so long to live anyway. She said, in the end of the day, something's going to take you. It could be a virus. It could be an illness. It could be something. And I laughed out loud. She said it not in a bitter way, in a sweet way. She said it in a deep way of being open, of being ready, of trusting a process in the deepest possible sense. And we had a very beautiful conversation about life, about our relationship and connection. And as I was having that conversation, forgive me for saying this out loud, I was like, Baruch Hashem for coronavirus. Baruch Hashem for that which causes us to actually, I should be calling my mother much more often. I should be reaching out to her, but now so many projects, so many initiatives are closing down. Now I'm coming back to that inner place of connection and I'm reaching out. I'm the best father I've definitely been in 10 years. I'm so present. I'm living with my children every day. There's a time like Shabbos. It's a global Shabbos where we return in the deepest way. My wife is, I shouldn't say this out loud publicly. It's only a few thousand people. It doesn't matter. Everybody has lots of issues. Some people have issues that they have 7 kids at home. Some people have issues that they're alone. They have no one around. And all the religious Jews are cleaning for Pesach. And now the kids are home. It's a balagan. Everyone has their own issues. We're expecting a baby in the next 3 weeks. I don't know if I should say that out loud. And my wife and I are just sitting on the couch, exhausted at 10:30 at night. We're going like, what does it mean to bring a child into this dark world right now? What kind of child is born in such darkness? And when I thought about that, I was overwhelmed for 10 seconds and we just started laughing. And the truth, my friends, is that everything good, everything incredible, everything holy is born in darkness. Egypt was called a womb. The Jewish people came out of Egypt. Everyone knows that the greatest breakthroughs they get in life are in the darkest places. The Zohar says the greatest light comes from the greatest darkness. Greatest is the light that comes to the darkness. There's so many of our challenges in our life when we have to cut out. We have to focus in the internal world. We have to go into that meditative state. We have to and find that breakthrough and find that connection and overcome that challenge. And if you're overwhelmed how alone you feel in your house, then now is the time to challenge your issues of being alone. If you're overwhelmed with shalom bias because you never dealt with issues with your husband and wife, then now's the time to challenge it. If you're wondering why all the religious people are talking about God, I've been called this week by many people that said, I do not believe in God. I can't believe how many emails I've received, but now they would like to learn meditation. Now they would like to come closer. So Hashem is saying, go deep, go deep. Hashem's saying, go time out from the boxing room, go back to the corner. A friend said recently this week, is that, when your computer doesn't work and you turn it off and you turn it back on. So Hashem's saying, turn off your life and go back to the source and go back to the connection. And Hashem is turning out the light so we will rebuild ourselves. We will reboot ourselves. This is a reboot, a global reboot. And someone said to me the other day, how long is it going to be till we can get back to our lives? How long is it like till I'm going to get back to my life, to my work, to everything will go back to normal? And listen, I have to give everyone a blessing right now, my friends. If we do our work, if we go into that Shabbos, if we go into the inner place and we transform our lives, we reconnect to Hashem on the deepest level and Torah on the deepest level, and we rebuild and restructure our families to the deepest love and the deep respect and open up channels of communication, and yes, talk about death, and yes, talk about meaning, and yes, talk about purpose, then we won't go back to our lives. We'll go forward to a new life, to new communities, to new levels of communication, of das, of consciousness, of working through our blocks. We don't have to go back to our lives. We can get an upgrade. When I run meditation retreats around the world, no one in the highest state, when they're flowing out of the body, when they're transforming their emotional blocks, when they're feeling light and energy and flooding of life, nobody ever turns around and says, I can't wait to get back to my normal, everyday, mundane life. Everybody's ready and wanting to leave that retreat transformed, changed forever, elevated forever. This is the deepest thing of need of separation. The whole time when a man and woman are together, that they have a connection, but Hashem then separates them. And the woman goes through a time of challenge, a time of darkness. And this is what Rabbi Nachman calls the hisrachakus for the sake of this kavus, that there's a time of separation. But if anyone's actually lived in this, according to this beautiful custom, what you find is that you have to support each other on a deeper level during the time of distance. You have to yearn for each other on a deeper level. And that yearning and that desire to connect and the desire to speak in a different way, and we have to talk out our problems right now, and we have to share on a deeper level, that awakens the possibility that when you leave that darkness, when you return upon him, then you can return with so much deeper love and communication, respect and elevation, etc., etc. So this is what I believe in all our heart, that Hashem is saying, close down the external and awaken the internal. If you can't be outside, then go inside, not inside the house, inside your soul, inside your challenges, inside of your pain. You have to know, what are your biggest challenges? What are your biggest fears? I want you to imagine every single one of us. Hashem is not doing this to the world. This is an intense thing to say. Hashem is doing this to you. That means, what is Hashem bringing up for you? Your fear, your doubt, your ego, your overwhelm, your frustration, your fear of death. Is he bringing up, what is coming up in your house? I want you to imagine all of coronavirus. Bishvili Nivo Olam was created to bring that up so you could own it and transform that, to heal that, to release that, to know your source, to know yourself, to know your connection. What matters the most? Hashem is asking the world right now, what matters the most? Rabbi Nachman says that the essence of life is that we have to take covet. We take covet. Covet means honor. And I always say covet, what we honor in life says about who we are. Do I honor money? Do I honor my cell phone? Do I honor my job? Do I take my honor away from my family, away from my wife, away from my husband, to my higher values? Do I honor them? What honor means? Covet means heaviness. What do I give gravity to? And Rabbi Nachman says we have to take the honor, the covet, back from my ego self, and we have to give it back to Hashem, give it back to a Shekhinah. We have to honor the Shekhinah. And I want to say something, and I'm going to end the Torah on this point, and I'm going to ask everyone to step into a 5-minute meditation, a prayer together around the world we can unite in the deepest way. If this makes sense, if this speaks to you, maybe you'll hear this in the deepest way. The essence of life, Rabbi Nachman is teaching, is that we invest our gravity, our focus, our intention in the external world, in the ego world, and say, this is what matters. But when we move on to the next one, we're going to realize they aren't the things that mattered. And why didn't I give gravity, weight, focus, attention to the deepest things within me, the deepest things within others, the deepest things in life? And when I take covet back from my ego and I give it to my divine soul and I give it to Hashem and I give it to the Shekhinah, that is the ultimate tikkun of Malchus. That is the ultimate tikkun of Nuk. That's also the ultimate giving covet to Hashem. And that's what we call all of the building of the Domita, of the feminine energy, of the feminine consciousness, of the global human consciousness, comes when we turn our covet back from the ego and we give that covet back to the Shekhinah. And that's what builds Chava. That's what builds the woman. That's what builds that which will ultimately receive all the blessing from the world. So it's just a drush and it's just a little Torah. But this virus, as we know, is called COVID-19. 19, my friends, is gematria of Chava, of the woman, of the feminine. That it's time we give covet. It's time we refocus our lives to the Shekhinah, to the divine presence. To, as Rabbi Jacobs had said beautifully, the Mishkan Ma'at, to our wives, to our children, to our values, to spend literally 2 months meditating on teaching and sharing and helping others and letting go the externality to remember the deepest, most meaningful, beautiful things in life. This game of COVID-19 is to return covet to the Shekhinah, return covet to the Chava, and to rebuild ourselves so that the whole world can turn back to Hashem with deeper focus, with deeper resonance, panim b'panim. And I believe with all my heart, when we move through this, shift through that, there will be a great light. I'm not a rabbi to say every Mashiach will be here. Halavai, he would be. But we're not here. We're here to hope for Mashiach, but we can't promise guarantees. We're not supposed to predict it. But I promise you, in the next few months, as we move through this phase, there will be an incredible, unprecedented revelation and change in global consciousness. And that's what we're asking. And that's what we're hoping for. That's what we're praying for, to move through this as fast as possible and to make the transformation, to own that transformation, prepare ourselves to be greater vessels, greater light, to receive a whole new possibility of reality, that only everything had to be broken down so we could break through to a higher level. I am done. I'm asking for 5 minutes from you. 5 minutes from you right now. People around the globe who have done this with us, who have come together for retreats or online learning with the Elevation Project. I want to ask everyone right now if they could do this. I understand some people will be cynical and not used to it, and that's fine, and you're totally welcome to be. So 5 minutes right now. Reb Shmuel, you have your microphone on. Reb Shmuel has his microphone on right now. Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask everyone right now, if you're willing to come with us for 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm going to ask everyone to have an incredible prayer experience together in the deepest sense. And you may be cynical and you may be open to this. But if you come with the experience, I want to show you what true His Buddhist looks like and it feels like. And if you're open to it, together with thousands of people right now online, we could create this experience together. And it's very mamish simple for every single one of us right now. I'm going to ask everyone to sit up straight in your chair, uncross the arms and our legs, and just be aware that Hashem will maintain the darkness enough until we've sucked the marrow out of it. So we've sucked the marrow out of every lesson and we've yearned for Him in the deepest way. And we see, as the mystics say, something called a hamtaka. As long as we see that this plague is the opposite from Hashem, then the more power we give it. But the more we see that this plague is a gift from Hashem to awaken us to a greater light, and we turn our minds to Hashem and pray, may what you need to be revealed through it be revealed through it, and may the pain and suffering be done, then we have the power by seeing the good in it to make the most of it, by turning that darkness to light, by stopping its tracks and bringing us all home. So let us come together right now and experience a prayer. And if you're brave enough to come with me, if you can open a little trust in your heart, literally for 5 minutes right now, I'm going to give you some instructions just to collectively open our consciousness in a deeper way, to have 1 minute of the deepest prayers together right now. So sit up straight in your chair, uncross your arms and legs if you can handle that emotionally. And I'm going to ask everyone right now just to let your shoulders relax and your body relax and your legs and your feet relax. As Pashtas Agashmas, we have to release from our sensitivities of the sensations of the body to move back to the shave without the asir, without the guf, without the externality. We're going to ask everyone right now to think of one moment, one memory in your life when you felt tremendously loved. We're going to create something unprecedented together, which is to bind our consciousness together and create a vessel to reveal deeper light and healing for the whole of the world if we can do this together. I'm asking everyone right now to choose one memory in your life where you felt tremendously loved, a love from another, a love towards another. I want you to play that like a little movie in your mind right now, the beginning, middle, and an end. Where were you? Were you standing and sitting? Who was there? What were the colors? What were the sounds around you? Rewind it and play it, rewind it and play it, so you can experience that love. Wonderful. I want you to think of a moment right now where you felt tremendous kedusha, tremendous holiness, transcendence, spiritual energy. Whether it was a holy place, a holy time, a gift given to you, an out-of-body experience, whatever that was, where you felt connected to the infinity of everything or the light flowing through you. I want you to remember a moment, a specific time or place, rewind and play it, rewind and play it. And remember the details, the colors, the sights, sounds, and smells, and experience it again, all together right now. Wonderful. I want you to go back right now to that experience of love, and I want you to play that memory of love right again right now. I want you to go back to the experience of holiness right now. Rewind and experience it again. I want you to go back to love and then move to holiness, and then love and then move to holiness. I want you to be conscious of the love and the holiness and the holiness and the love, the kedusha and the ava and the ava and the kedusha. I want you to be aware that the source of the love is the same source of the ava, it's the same source of the kedusha. I want you to be aware that Hashem was giving you that moment of love to taste His infinite love for you. And Hashem's infinite love is infinitely greater than that moment, and just be aware of that right now. I want you to be aware that moment of holiness was just a slight taste of the infinite holiness of Hashem. And Hashem gave you that moment as a kiss, as a taste test, just to experience the infinite holiness and transcendence, the infinite kedusha of Hashem. And I want you right now to just see that memory of love fall away, that memory of holiness fall away, and see the experience, feel the infinite experience of love and holiness. And right now I want you to practice a technique called Hiskashvus. It's very simple. Right now, there's literally thousands of people around the world doing this all together with us. On the count of 3, I just want you to choose and believe that all our neshamas, all your souls, all our consciousness is bound together as one. And as we choose it and we believe it and just trust it simply and fix that intent, we suddenly create an energetic binding connection between all our neshamas as one soul together. On the count of 3, choose it and believe it. 1, 2, 3. And just open your hands to receive that light and energy. On the count of 3, right now, I want you to choose and believe that that's connection between us is infinitely more stronger, much more stronger, that you give the energy out to others and receive all the energy back for yourself, creating one united, kli, vessel. His colorless, his kashvus, interconnected all together. On the count of 3, let it be double, triple the strength. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. I want you to imagine Hashem be mamshich or is what's called in Kabbalah. Imagine Hashem flooding into this group, this consciousness, tremendous light and energy right now. From the Or Ein Sof down to the world of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, to this vessel, to this feminine receiving energy we're all sharing together right now. Just see light flooding into us, the collective group, and around us right now. Make that a prayer. Know that is true. Now invite into this space all the greatest tzaddikim, all the greatest gedolim from our generation, the tzaddikus from previous generations, whatever tzaddik spiritual master you feel closest to, from the Avos, the Amos, Esther, Mordechai, Moshe Rabbeinu, Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Shem Tov, Yisrael Salanta, whoever tzaddikim speak to you, whoever Rebbe, whatever tzaddikim, invite in. Choose and believe they're here with us, guiding us through this process. The schus avos. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Valea, davening for all of Klal Yisrael, all of the world right now. I want us all to collectively draw Hashem's name in, just imagining the divine name. If you know this name, you can do it yourself. If you don't know it, just tune into my words and we're all doing it together. Imagine the name flooding with light and choose the intent that as we fill this name with light, we're healing. Ana Hashem, please Hashem, heal the world, heal our souls. This group is a channel to flood the light of Afua, Brias to all over the world. Ani Hashem Rafecha. Focus on Hashem's name right now. Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. And again, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey. The koyach of Yerushalayim, of Jerusalem, the Holy of Holies, from the light should flood from there to us, to all of the world. And together right now, let us take 1 minute with all our hearts to pray for ourselves, our families, our mishpachas, all of Klal Yisrael, all of the world, all of Italy and Spain, mamish the neshamas in Iran, mamish the neshamas in China, in America, all our mishpachas and mishpachas of our mishpachas should have healing, should have no panic, should use this time for tshuva, to know what we have to work on, to release it, to build ourselves collectively as a nation, as a world, to a higher consciousness, to receive a new light for all of our humanity. Let's take 1 minute to daven for that now with all our hearts, with thousands of people. We are connected as one. Hashem, fill us with light right now. Now, as Rabbi Nachman says, Rabbi Zohar says, see the world healed. See us all getting back to an elevated life, not going back, but transformed and elevated. That we're ready on a new level of global consciousness to receive a whole new possibility. The Zohar says, believe when the prayer is finished that it's already been answered. Take a moment to do that now. Release any fear that says, but it won't be, but we will fail, but it won't happen. Release that now, the energy of this group. And know that our prayer has been received. Wonderful. I ask you all to take a deep breath. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. I thank you for your presence, for your generosity of trying. I love you if you're online to share a little of your experiences, what you sensed, what you felt through that process. Is coming. We worked hard to have wonderful rabbis, wonderful Rebbitzins all here to share this experience together. We hope that you received their light and received their blessing. Thank you so much for participating today with an open heart and open soul. Thank you, Mo, for guiding us through the process. May we see the healing that we prayed for come true before our eyes. May we be blessed with miracles. May we be blessed to find and know what we all individually need to work on, to release that dimyon, to release that fear, to come back to ourselves in a deeper way and not go back to our lives, to go forward to greater lives for ourselves and all over the world. Can you hear it, son? Thank you.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.